Hey again from the garden, it's Christina from Sunshine and Flora. So I am out in the garden today doing some prep for that big market of the year that I do every year. If you followed my channel for a couple years, you have seen me do multiple videos on this market. It is called the Made and Found Midwest Market. It's my absolute favorite day of the year. And I kind of plan in my head with ideas the whole year to prep for this market as far as what I'm going to offer, booth layout, anything like that. But today is 2 weeks from the day that I will be harvesting for this market. So I'm out here doing a little prep. I'm going to be doing some pruning to rejuvenate my garden for this market harvest. Now, I need as many flowers as possible for this market, and one of the things that I really want to count on are my zinnias. My zinnias are looking a little tired for the season, so I need to rejuvenate them. Now, I did this 2 different times last year, one for this market and one when we actually had family pictures taken in the garden. 2 weeks before I needed as many flowers as possible, I completely went through and I deadheaded them. And 2 weeks later, my patch was completely full again. Now I'm going to zoom in and show you some close-ups of this, but this section of my zinnia patch is looking pretty darn good. It's really nice and green. It's got a lot of new growth. That end is looking a little bit tired. I don't know if that end gets a little more sun or heat or it's a soil, but those plants definitely rejuvenated. So the first thing I'm going to show you is where I cut these and how I cut these. I don't necessarily, when I do this, cut them as deep as I possibly could because I'm using the zinnias for my jelly jar arrangements and I don't need them to be super long. So I'm going to cut them at a specific place. Then I'm going to show you how I'm going to fertilize some things. I went through yesterday and fertilized all of my dahlias, and so I want to show you what I use and how I do that as well. But let me move the camera closer and I'm going to show you how I'm pruning these. So first of all, here is the end of my zinnia patch that I think is looking a little bit tired. The foliage is kind of that yellowish green color, which means it's probably lacking nutrients. And then if we zoom in closer, you can just see down in there kind of all the bottom leaves starting to die off. The flowers are quite a bit smaller. They just don't look as awesome as they could. Now there is some new growth pushing, and so that is a really great sign, but they're just getting tired for the season. Now, if we move down this way, I'll try to go slow so I don't make you dizzy. And hopefully you guys can see okay. I will try not to shadow things too much. You can see, well, hopefully you can see that these leaves are a lot thicker. They're more green. I know I'm in bright sun right now. Maybe I should actually try to shade it for you. All right, so here's a shaded section. You can see this plant looks much healthier. This is also pushing some new growth. They're just a much darker green color. They look a lot better. So I don't know what's going on, but this section looks a lot better, but that's okay. I can bring it back. So this is going to be a really easy example to show you guys. Normally when I would harvest this flower, I would go in way down here and harvest it as deep as I possibly could. Now I still could do that because there is new side shoots down here, but to rejuvenate the plant for some stems that I don't care what the stem length are, I'm actually going to harvest it right here because there is a brand new growth point here and a brand new growth point here. And if I harvest it here where there's no new growth points, it's just going to take that much longer to rejuvenate. But I harvest it here where these two have already started. That gives me new growth so much quicker. And I don't need anything longer than this for those jelly jars. In fact, I probably need something more along those lines. Okay, so here's a couple more that need deadheaded, and I'm going to shade this so hopefully you can see much better. Here's a couple new ones that are really starting to grow. But this stem, I could harvest it way down here, but there's a new growth point right there. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut him here. Same with this stem, there's a new growth point right there. So I'm cutting right above that junction. And now this will grow nice and tall and have a really good head start. This one, if you can see this, there's a really nice growth point here. Cut it right there. All right, so I got my bucket. I'm literally going to go through this entire patch and I'm just going to quickly take off every single bloom. And then in 2 weeks, this whole patch should be full of blooms again. I should mention that I did come out here really quick this morning and harvest all of the zinnias that looked really good. It didn't have any damage that I could use for some orders for tomorrow. So everything that I am throwing away is damaged or overdue. I wouldn't be able to use it in bouquets anyway. So literally all these are going to go in my compost to help with my soil for next year. And hopefully in 2 weeks, this patch is just as beautiful as it was when it first bloomed this season. Okay, you guys, there's my zinnia patch. Is that the saddest looking zinnia patch you've ever seen? Probably not, but it's definitely the least colorful. So I literally went in here and I clipped every single bloom. Well, almost every single bloom. There are a few buds, like this one that is just starting to open. I left that one. And there's a few buds like this one. Oh, I guess I did forget a yellow flower down here. I'll have to get him. But I literally went through and clipped the whole entire thing. So it now is just a healthy mass of green. There is already a lot of new growth, and I think this is just gonna really take off. So like I said, I did this 2 different times last year. One was the same time of September, and it worked great. One was probably the 2nd week of August because we did family pictures at the and it really, really helped. So now that this is done, let's head inside and mix up the fertilizer. All right, so I'm in my furnace room. I know the lighting in here is not the most amazing, but I'm gonna mix up some fertilizer. So I have my big watering can. I think this is from Gardener's Supply, and it is 3.5 gallons. And the fertilizer that I am using, it's from Alaska, Bloom City. So I also have their fish emulsion fertilizer, and I also have their kelp fertilizer. This is called the More Bloom, and the reason I am using this is it's a 0-10-10, so there is no nitrogen content to this. It's only the NPK, so it's the P and the K, potassium, phosphorus. Sometimes I have a hard time remembering that on demand, but anyway, from what I have read online with zinnias and a lot of flowers, when you're wanting more blooms, they already have all that foliage growth and you want the blooms, so you don't want to give them a lot of nitrogen. You want to give them the other elements. And so this is actually what I saw online that Swan Island Dahlias gives her dahlias. So this is what I have been using to fertilize my dahlias. I'm also going to use this to fertilize my zinnias. So this calls for a tablespoon per gallon, and like I said, this is a 3.5 gallons, so I'm going to use 3.5 tablespoons. You always want to make sure to shake it before you use it. Okay, so my water can is full. I'm gonna go out and fertilize. I know it's going to take more than just 1 water can full. It says 1 gallon with the tablespoon of fertilizer per 25 square feet. So that is only a 5 by 5 area. The area that I am fertilizing is probably 5 by 30. So this could take me 5 to 6 water cans. So yes, I'm going to be going back and forth, but if this gives the nutrients to those zinnias, I think it's really going to be worth it. I should note that last year when I rejuvenated my zinnias, I did not fertilize them. So I'm excited to see the difference this year with the deadheading and cutting back and the fertilizer combination. And I will make sure to keep you guys updated. All right, let's head back out to the garden. Okay, this whole patch is fertilized, and I already think this looks a million times better. Just seeing all the new growth and the fresh buds, I know this is going to take off in no time. So now what I want to do is I want to walk you guys around the garden, and I just want to show you the other things that I'm doing the same thing to. And then I want to give you a quick update on the dahlias, which I went through and did some pruning, and I also fertilized those a couple days ago. Okay, so this is my bed of Amazon dianthus, clearly in full bloom right now. However, a lot of them are fading, and while they are very short, if I were to be making those jelly jar arrangements for this weekend, I could definitely use this height. But I don't need them for 2 weeks, so I'm gonna go through here, I'm gonna cut all of the blooms off, fertilize it just like I did with the zinnias, and we'll see if this rejuvenates just like they do. I recently cut back my straw flowers. You can see I have a few that are ready to harvest, which I'm going to be doing for a market. And then these are what I just cut back recently. They're pushing new growth. I'm crossing my fingers I have some straw flowers in a couple weeks. I don't know how long these take to rejuvenate once they are cut, but I'm crossing my fingers. This bed of feverfew was just cut back last week, and it's already pushing new growth. Also crossing my fingers, I have a few of these stems to use in a couple weeks. Here's a look at one of my Fama White pincushion flowers. These were planted earlier this spring. They are perennials, so I'm finally getting blooms off of them, and I'm just gonna pretty much keep up with harvesting them, so I have a few of these to use in a couple weeks. And then two things right here in this patch. I have a little plant of gomphrena that I'm just gonna keep up on harvesting. And then I have this patch of marigolds. I really like to tuck these in the jelly jars just for a pop of color, just one per jar. So I'm gonna go through and deadhead this, and these should bounce back in no time. Here's a little patch of cosmos that I had. I recently deadheaded this. This is already putting on some new blooms, and so these are probably just gonna start growing, and I'll be able to harvest these for sure in a couple weeks. I do have some white ones over here that are starting to bloom. Those are the ones that particularly get eaten by the beetles, so I just really need to keep up on harvesting them, and then I have continuous blooms as well. I showed these bells of Ireland in my recent garden tour, but at the bottom you can kind of see down in there. All of these are browning, and they did fall over once, and so they have super curved stems, but the top of the plants look really good. So I really should be able to harvest, say, from down here and get about a foot of a stem and then keep the top to put in a jelly jar. And I think those are gonna give me some decent accent foliage. And here's my dahlia patch. I just wanna show you a couple of ways that I have been pruning these to get the blooms going. So I'm hoping you can see this one okay, and I'll go show you another example also. But on this plant, I have a bloom here and a bloom here, but right here is a cut stem, and that was a bloom that was really short. Yes, I could have let it bloom out and would have had a nice little flower, but because I want a little longer stems, specifically for this market, I went ahead and cut that, and I'm letting those two side branches bloom to get a little bit longer of stem. Now I know the lighting is a little extreme here, but this particular dahlia plant had about 3 foot of growth on the top of it that I just cut off, because if you can see down in there that stem that is hollow, let me focus for you, that had not yet been pinched. And while I could have gotten a bloom, it's not one that I would have wanted to use for that market. And I really wanted to get ahead of myself to get usable blooms. So I went ahead and pinched that, and you can see this new growth is already growing, and that's just going to speed up the growth of the plant. So I really have been coming through this whole patch and kind of monitoring things. Now these I did recently, and can you count the blooms just right on this plant? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's probably 4 more here, 4 more here, 4 more here. I mean, that's one plant that is loaded with buds. These are going to explode, I think, in no time. I mean, just look at that little patch there with all those organza bags. Those are all buds. Those will probably all be ready next week. those will be harvested, and hopefully it's just an ongoing cycle for the next 2.5 weeks. I'm really hoping this whole entire patch just completely explodes. For my market, I would like to have 100 dahlia blooms. I planted 118 dahlia plants. So if each plant gives me just one bloom that week, I'll be good to go. Okay, I better get to deadheading. I will make sure to post a video for you guys in a couple weeks to show you how everything is looking after all of this deadheading, pruning, and fertilizer. I'll also be taking you along to that huge market and showing you that. And once all my dahlias are blooming, I'm going to do a full dahlia tour and show you all of the varieties and what they look like for this year. I can't wait to see them all bloom. So anyway, stay tuned for a lot more this whole garden season. We'll see you soon.